Secaucus Junction Station, in the middle of the night, a charter bus from Texas pulls up. We watch as New Jersey Transit Police connect with two men, the bus driver and his partner. Within minutes, women, men, and children emerge.
¿Cómo te sientas?
Muy bien.
How are you feeling? I asked. Very good, a little tired, but good, he replied, clearly wearing relief all over his face. He's been traveling for
3 meses.
3 months, he said. His journey is almost complete. The final destination will be,
Claro, Nueva York.
of course, New York. In this group, people from all different countries, united by an American dream they would do almost anything for. For countless migrants and asylum seekers, New York City is the epitome of that American dream.
Joel, sí.
I asked this woman how long she's been waiting for this all to come together.
Mucho tiempo.
A long time, she said, her joy impossible to ignore. Also staring us in the face, the tears that come when words are too hard to find. This young man says he drove from New York City to pick up his extended family here in New Jersey. They're all from Venezuela.
I just thank God that they made it.
The majority of them don't have anyone waiting to pick them up, so they walk inside the station with the few things they own. We watch as they wait for a train ticket to New York City. Sources tell Fox 5 News the tickets were purchased for them. The men who brought them from Texas wouldn't talk, but once they left, we got on that train with the migrants. Destination Penn Station. From anxious to overjoyed, they're clearly carrying a lot of emotions. This is all
Por misión.
for my children, says this mother of 3.
Que crezcan tranquilos, puedan tener.
That they can grow calmly, that they can have stability, that they can study, come and go. Things that can't happen in my country. Her youngest in her arms is just 1 year old. They've been traveling for months.
Nosotros venimos Venezuela.
We came from Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and then they crossed the border into the United States.
Pero hay bastante miedo.
Fear, a lot of fear. When you're traveling, you're scared. The journey into the U.S. is dangerous. It's been extensively documented that countless migrants lose their lives.
Más que todo con la ayuda de los familiares.
Everything with the help of family and friends, because without directions, without anything, here you can't make it. It was around 1 a.m. when the group arrived to Penn Station, successfully avoiding an apparent loophole. A recent executive order by Mayor Eric Adams places restrictions on when and how buses carrying migrants can come to New York City. For example, they can only arrive between 8:30 a.m. and noon from Monday to Friday. It was implemented last month after 14 buses arrived from Texas all in one night. Shortly after, officials started reporting the buses were leaving the migrants just a short train ride away at stations in New Jersey. In response, the governor of New Jersey wrote a letter asking bus companies to provide 32 hours advance notice before bringing migrants. The move clearly supportive of the executive order by Mayor Adams. But the bottom line is what we caught on camera proves. There's ways around it all.
Mi nombre es Power.
And people willing to help, like advocate Power Malou. As they left Penn Station,
Cuídense, ¿ok?
he helped them get Ubers, Lyfts, or taxis. This mother and son are from Haiti. The boy is just
2 años.
2 years old, she told me in Spanish. She also shared that they're heading to meet a relative.
Siéntate.
That young mother of 3 we talked to on the train got into a vehicle with her family and headed to the Roosevelt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. It's the official intake center for migrants and asylum seekers in New York City during this migrant crisis.
It's very emotional just seeing them come here and feeling like they're here.
To date, officials say more than 160,000 migrants have come to New York City since last spring. The mayor has repeatedly said more resources are needed from the federal government because shelters are at capacity.
This is super grassroots. This is people hitting us up on WhatsApp, letting us know what the situation is, what they need. We basically put out a call for volunteers to donate, and then volunteers to donate not only funds, but donate their time as well. Because now with this executive order, we kind of have to be all over the place trying to find the migrants because they're now scattered.
Scattered, but clearly still coming to America and finding their way to New York City in large numbers.
No, estaba en Nueva York.
North, New York, the United States, how it is. It's a dream. Stephanie Bertini, Fox 5 News.
They persecute me in my country.
He says political persecution forced him to flee Guinea, West Africa, a nation where significant human rights issues are a concern.
My life is safe here. I'm not afraid. I have no fear here because I know that I'm to the United States.
He says back home, others told him to head to New York City once he got to the U.S., and that's exactly what he did.
I traveled to Istanbul first. After Istanbul, Bogota, from Colombia, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, before coming to the United States.
He's been here for less than 6 months, and like many migrants, he's facing challenges.
It's a little bit difficult because we don't have no working permit, no social.
It doesn't look like much from the outside. But Africana, a grassroots organization in Harlem, is a lifeline for West African migrants like him.
This is a safe place.
Adama Ba runs the place. She's the founder, too.
I'm a former asylum seeker myself. So from asylum to green card to citizenship. It took 16 years to become an American citizen.
Ba says she knows firsthand how complicated immigration matters can be.
It's very confusing, but especially for Black migrants.
She says for migrants like the many from West Africa who are in her office daily, immigration issues are compounded by drastic linguistic, cultural, and religious differences.
For Black migrants, it's harder because the anti-Blackness starts from their journey in South America. They're charged extra. They are looked at different. They don't speak the language. They don't understand the culture.
Ba is an activist. She authored a book recounting some of her experience. She's worked with disenfranchised communities for years. Recently, responding to New York City's migrant crisis at the front lines, meeting asylum seekers as they arrive. And here at Africana, she is doing whatever she can to help them transition to a life in America.
The first thing we do is ID for you. There is no one that's going to rent an apartment with you if you're walking around with just immigration papers.
After filing asylum, migrants are eventually given work permits. The city has been housing many of them in more than 200 emergency shelters established during this migrant crisis. Newly rigid restrictions imposing limits on shelter stays are creating more hurdles, Ba says.
There's no stable place for them. So how do they apply for asylum? How do they move out of the shelter system? How do they get their driver's license? How do they get the stuff if they can't even get their mail?
I can't imagine how many letters are here.
Now, a makeshift mailroom is growing in the back of the office. That's because Ba allows asylum seekers to use the address here to get their mail.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Here at Africana, migrants also get help transitioning their children to school and with enrolling themselves in one important course.
Enroll you in ESL school. The reason why we do that for Black migrants is because if they don't speak Spanish or English, they have a huge disadvantage. All the services are in Spanish or English.
She staffs her office with volunteers, most of them also migrants and asylum seekers.
The reality of it is Black migrants are not going to go to the city and ask for help. They're going to come to people that look like them for help. They're going to go to their houses of worship. They're going to go to their faith institutions that they recognize for help.
And even though they feel they are better off here, on this day, this asylum seeker reminds us all what it feels like to miss home and how loved ones like family are irreplaceable.
I'm really sad because it has been like 3 months I didn't see them.
What does the American dream mean to you?
For me, it's freedom.
Stephanie Bertini, Fox 5 News. At just 23 years old, she decided to take on a dangerous journey across the U.S.-Mexico border. A video and a few photos captured on her iPhone during the process are the reminders now of the life she left behind. Tell us about the journey.
I have gone through a lot of difficulties to come to America.
I interviewed Ms. Chen through a translator at her immigration attorney's office.
No, I won't. The question is, do I file?
Edward Kucha has been based in Manhattan's Chinatown for decades. He says he's managing an increase in immigration cases related to people from China.
What do you make of the surge? What kind of context can you give us?
It's tough. It's really hard to put in context because China's huge. it's the middle class, I think, that are being squeezed now in a way that they weren't before, economically, religiously.
When I asked Ms. Chen why she left China, she said,
My family doesn't agree me to be a Christian, and also the country is not allow us to be a Christian.
According to the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom conditions in China continue to deteriorate. According to the Pew Research Center last year, China's constitution says ordinary citizens enjoy freedom of religious beliefs, but authorities closely police religious activity. The Migration Policy Institute is tracking a surge of Chinese migrants. Julia Gilad is Associate Director of the U.S. Immigration Policy Program at the Institute.
Some of the push factors in China, people were pretty frustrated with how restrictive the COVID lockdowns were. The economy there has had some challenges in the wake of COVID with high unemployment. And I'm sure some people are sick of living under the authoritarian government that China has.
Like people from other countries long have, Chinese migrants are following the long-established roots of human smugglers.
Through the internet, through videos on TikTok and other social media, we've seen a spread of information about how migrants can come to the United States.
Did you pay a human smuggler?
She says it cost around $50,000 American dollars to get here.
Where did you get $50,000?
It's all from my church brothers and sisters. They all support me to come.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection data shows the sharp increase in CBP encounters with people from China at the southern border. In the 2021 fiscal year, the number was 450. By 2022, 2,176. In 2023, 24,314. And this fiscal year so far, as of March, 24,376. Ms. Chen says the journey out of China started with a plane ride to Thailand and then to Turkey. She says from there, Mexico. Tijuana, Mexico. Across the border, U.S. soil. She says she walked into the U.S. state of California. I asked who she came with.
About 12 people, 12 migrants.
From China?
也是从中国来的吗? Yes.
How did you get to New York?
My snakehead bought a ticket.
A snakehead is a term used for a human smuggler. In our Migrants in America series.
Where are you guys from? We are from China.
You're all from China?
Yeah.
While reporting on the backlog at the Immigration and Customs Office in Lower Manhattan, we met a group of people from China waiting alongside others, mostly for matters pertaining to their asylum claims.
We all want to stay in America.
When it comes to the surge of asylum seekers seeking refuge in New York City, the data shows only 500 Chinese migrants in city shelters as of March. In city records, the Chinese demographic so minor it falls in the other category.
It's important to realize that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Chinese arriving in New York City every month.
Professor Kenneth Guest is a Chinese immigration expert with insight on this new wave of Chinese asylum seekers crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and coming to New York City.
Because they are able to engage and interact with local Chinese economic and social structures, they're not popping up on our radar screen. They're not showing up in the statistics in the shelters.
Of course, we know in New York there are long-established communities like Manhattan's Chinatown, where in just a few short months, Ms. Chen says she found a new religious home base.
When you got to New York, what did you do?
I keep looking for the church and church's brothers and sisters.
And she connected with relatives who are willing to help her.
I live with my relative.
Back home, she says she was a school teacher.
Do you miss China?
你想念中国吗? No.
She left her parents and her younger sister behind.
Was your family upset?
Yes. My family liked Buddhist.
Like other migrants from China are reporting, she says freedom is worth the journey.
Do you believe that the Chinese government is oppressive?
那你感觉到中国或者是你的国家会不会给你压力? Yes.
Here at this immigration office in Manhattan's Chinatown, Ms. Chen's religious asylum case file is one of many.
How did she come to the lawyer's office? How did she find the lawyer?
My sister told me that this law firm is very famous.
Her attorney says it will likely take years to move through the overburdened immigration court system. Stephanie Bertini, Fox 5 News. Every night on the streets of Manhattan, you'll find Dennis Rico doing what he's been doing since he got here. Selling authentic Venezuelan food is bringing in
$250.
approximately $250 to $300 a day, he tells me.
Arepa venezolana.
I first interviewed him last year, shortly after he started the makeshift business from scratch, out of sheer need.
Mucha paciencia.
A lot of patience, Rico says, as he reflects on what it takes to make it. He was one of the first to share their story in our series, Migrants in America in Their Own Words. Since November 2023, we've heard from people from different parts of the world, including Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Many who have crossed the southern border and even the northern border. All of them to get to New York City during an unprecedented time the city calls the migrant crisis. Rico says he and his family were granted temporary protected status, or TPS, by the federal government. They chose to settle in New York City after leaving Venezuela, crossing the border, and seeking asylum in the U.S.
Nosotros trabajamos 10 horas al día.
We work 10 hours a day, he says. He now has a loyal customer base among other migrants. He and his wife cook during the day while their daughter is at school. Learning English, among other things.
Hey, qué lindo. Give me 5.
Weeknights or weekends, she's alongside her mom and dad. They sell the food near the Row Hotel, one of many city-established emergency shelters for migrants. The kind of place the family is used to calling home by now, but
Estamos en proceso.
we are in the process of getting an apartment, he says.
Mejorado mucho.
We have improved a lot, reminding me what drives him, his definition of the American dream.
Es tener una arepera.
To own an arepa store, he told me last year.
En eso estamos trabajando.
This is what we are working for still this year.
Sueño americano.
The American dream. We heard it again and again from the migrants we talked to in our series. The pursuit of the American dream brought them to New York City. We also heard about how tough the reality of building that dream really is.
I don't want to end up like a lot of homeless people.
This man, one of several to share the fear of homelessness with us after the city started imposing restrictions and limits on shelter stays due to capacity issues. At one point in the crisis, the numbers were so high, you could find migrants waiting for somewhere to go on the sidewalk outside the Roosevelt Hotel, the city's official intake center. We showed you the overwhelmed ICE headquarters in Manhattan, where we witnessed the heartbreak that comes when hope starts to fade.
No es fácil.
It's not easy, said this man from Venezuela, clearly at a breaking point. The surge of migrants started in the spring of 2022. Since then, city officials say more than 224,000 migrants have come. Initially, the mayor welcomed the new arrivals. New York City, a sanctuary city with a right to shelter mandate, allowed asylum seekers to find food, clothes, medical attention, and a place to stay. There was a constant flow of migrants arriving in buses at Port Authority. We reported many of those buses came from Texas. As the numbers grew, so did city restrictions. For example, late last year, an executive order by Mayor Adams put limits on where and when migrants could be dropped off by charter bus. But it didn't deter them. Instead, many found a way through a loophole. Bus drop-offs in New Jersey and then a train to New York City. With photojournalist Lenny Torres behind the camera, I interviewed this mom in the middle of the night. She told me she did it all for my children. New York City's migrant crisis unfolded parallel to yet another surge at the southern border. In June 2024, President Biden issued an order which demanded a halt to asylum processing at the U.S.-Mexico border when U.S. officials deemed the southern border overwhelmed. Federal restrictions further tightened in September.
On the front line, the numbers have definitely slowed down. When the executive order was put in by the president, the numbers have gone down, but we still have people in the shelters that are in limbo.
Power Malou has been working on the front lines of New York City's migrant crisis. He's one of many in a network of humanitarians across the country. He notes a decrease in the numbers after that presidential order. The city does too. In a statement, we continue to see a decline in the number of people entering our shelter system each week. In response to this trend, we are consolidating our emergency shelter operations and scaling down the number of sites in use. But as of November 24th, 2024, on record, there were still more than 56,000 migrants in city shelters.
Why did you come to America?
告诉我们你为什么来美国？
因为我在家里。
I'm a Catholic in my country, and we were persecuted by the local government.
Through our series, we got an up-close look at the changing face of migration, from Chinese asylum seekers walking through Manhattan's Chinatown to migrants from African countries showing up in Harlem looking for a community, to people from India and other countries flying to Canada and walking across the northern border, we confirmed.
Are you going to New York City?
Yeah.
Many migrants share the details of their journey and the dangers of dealing with human smugglers.
It's dangerous. Very dangerous.
Hours, days, months, interviews, research, tips, and confirmations from officials. Over the last year, we have watched and documented New York City history unfold.
Tienes que estar muy enfocado.
You need to be very focused. You have to be honestly looking at all the realities that are necessary to maintain yourself in this city or this country. It's not easy. Dennis Rico's story paints the picture of migrants in America. He has a well-seasoned understanding of all the complexities by now. As we wrapped up our second interview, almost a year to the date since our first one, I told him I'd like to see that arepa store if it ever becomes reality.
Tú eres la primera invitada.
You are the first to be invited, he says, with the same kind of determination in his eyes he had last year.
Este es un país que te ofrece muchas oportunidades.
This is a country with many opportunities.
I mean, Stephanie, you put so much hard work and passion into this reporting. You traveled so much, you met so many migrants, unique perspectives. What did you learn in the last year?
So complex.
Yeah.
This migrant crisis is so complex. I worked mostly with photojournalist Lenny Torres, along with other members of the team. We've been able to truly document a piece of New York City history, and the history, guys, you know, it continues to unfold.
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating. You touched on it a little bit too about the sort of sense of hope fading over the course of the year. And of course now with Trump coming in promising mass deportations, there must be tremendous fear amongst this community about what comes next.
Yeah, so Dennis Rico, right, I asked him, you know, how are you feeling about this? He describes it as uncertainty, concern, fear. I talked to some immigration experts, humanitarians. There's definitely fear in the migrant community. We'll have to wait and see how this all unfolds. Of course, I'll be covering it. A lot of question marks.
Yeah, complex, no doubt. All right, Steph, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can find Stephanie's entire Migrants in America series on our Fox 5 YouTube page. Just go to youtube.com and search Fox 5 New York. Then you can find it under the playlist tab.